All right, now part 2 of this. So I guess I'm going to start here by sort of relaying a little bit about myself. I know that, when you're younger, you had certain ambitions. Some people had ambitions of being an astronaut. Some people wanted to be a doctor when they were young, or a ballerina, or something like that. But in my case, I actually was a little bit more mundane. I remember one of the first things I remember when I was younger, that when I was a kid in like first grade, I remember I wanted to be a weather guy. I wanted to be the weather person because I thought they were really cool. They would dress up really nicely. They get to stand in front of this giant green screen and touch it and do all this other stuff. And they also got to decide the weather. Now wait a minute. You think, wait, what does that mean? Well, they said it was sunny. If they said it would be sunny, hey, it's sunny outside. And if they said it was going to rain, it was going to rain. So clearly they decided the weather, right? They got to say, this is going to be the weather. Look, okay, I was 6 years old at the time. Cut me some slack. Anyway, so I remember in my first grade class, one of the first things I did was I relayed this to my teacher, and my teacher thought it was a really cute thing that I wanted to do this. So they let me do this one day. They let me sort of come in and do a weather report one day. So I came in one day, I did a lot of research, did a lot of work, and I came in and I said the following, for my class, we did a little news thing, and I was a weather guy, and I gave the following forecast. I said, it is sunny and it is not sunny. Record scratch. Everybody could have stopped, pointed, and laughed. And if that's what you're doing, you were just like them. God dang. Anyway, my traumatic childhood aside, let's consider this statement. We look at this statement and think to yourself, there's something horribly wrong with this statement here, right? Because it's saying something, it's also saying the opposite thing too. And it's kind of like those nature documentaries where you have the two goats sort of butting heads with one another. Something doesn't seem to make any sense here. Well, now that we are equipped with the tools of basic Boolean logic here, let's analyze this. So we can say that it is sunny here. Let's call this here P, right? So it's pretty clear that this statement becomes P and, because we have an and it's not sunny, so it's not P here. So we can analyze this by truth table. So the nice part about this is that this is only one statement here, so we can just do something like that. Here's P, here's not P, and then we're going to have a column for P and not P here, okay? So in this case here, we can kind of do this. So we know P has only two values. It's either true or false here. The negation of P is false and true. And now note that no matter what, in both the rows here, in each row, there's only one, there's at least one statement that's false. So that means the conjunction of these will always be false here. So note that in this situation here, this forecast doesn't make any sense because I've uttered a statement that will always be false. There's nothing that tells you anything about this here, right? This statement contradicts itself. So we refer to this here, this sort of statement in Boolean logic, we refer to this as what is known as a contradiction. So we note that there's a contradiction here. It's a statement that's always false no matter the truth values of its components. So no matter whether, our constituent statements are both true or both false, or, one or the other, right? It's always going to be a false statement here. Now, this is a very simple contradiction. I'm sure with a little creativity and a little bit of extra work, you can probably figure out some more complex statements that will always be false as well. But this is probably one of the simplest contradictions out there. We can see that it's always going to be false. Anyway, let's go back to my traumatic childhood, shall we? So, awful thing. I figured, you know what? I'm not going to let this keep me down. I'm going to try again. We're going to do this one more time. So I went home and revised it here. And I came back the next day and you know what? I'm going to fix it. So I went home, spent many hours on it. Really, just working at it. And then finally, I came up with the following here. I said that it is sunny or it is not sunny. And yet again, those jerks pointed and laughed at me. So, let's look at this statement here. I think you realize that this statement, well, it's slightly better than the previous one in that it's not always false, but this doesn't tell you anything. It feels very like, yeah, of course it's gonna be true. It feels like it's no matter what, it's gonna be true. Okay, so we can do the same analysis as before here, right? In this case, it's gonna be P or not P here. And we can do exactly the same thing as before. we have P, we have not P here, and then we have P or not P, and then we can put this all together like so, right? In this situation, now we can go ahead and do that, and then now we can do, so again, we can just go ahead and copy the first two columns from the previous things. Now we have a disjunction here. Remember, the disjunction is true whenever either half of it is, at least one piece is true, and we have both, that's the case. In both rows, at least one piece is true. So in this situation here, we see that this is all true. So this is a statement here that's always true. So it's better than the previous one because the previous one was always false, but this doesn't tell you anything, right? Yeah, it's going to rain or it's not going to rain. That's wonderful. So in this situation, we had a contradiction before. This statement here we refer to as what is known as a tautology. So we can say that this is a tautology here, the statement that is always true no matter the value, no matter the values of its, truth values of its components here. So this is a statement that will always be true, much like how we had before. We had a statement that's always false. Here we have what is known as a tautology, where all the statements are always true here. And then it's just a matter of putting it all together from each other. Okay? So we will be back in part 3 very shortly.